I am 82 years old today. It feels strange to say that out loud, because in my head I am still standing at the door of that factory in 1962, holding my metal lunch pail and wearing boots soaked in grease. But the mirror does not lie. My hands, the same hands that lifted beams and tightened bolts until my fingers went numb, now tremble just to hold a cup of coffee. I have lived here in Detroit, Michigan, for more than 60 years. I came from Alabama, fleeing the scorching sun of the fields, only to fall into the heat of the foundries. And if there is one thing I have learned in all this time, the most bitter lesson of all, it is that they lied to us. They lied about hard work. They spent our entire lives telling us that if you kept your head down, if you were the first to arrive and the last to leave, if you gave your blood to the floor of that workshop, life would give you something fair in return. But life is not a bank where you deposit sweat and withdraw happiness. Hard work gives you only one thing in the end, a broken body and a house that is far too quiet. I am sitting here on my porch now. It is Saturday morning. Back then, Saturday was the day I worked the hardest. I did double shifts, 16 hours straight, because I believed every extra hour was another brick in my children's future. I would look at Marcus, my boy, and think that if I wore myself down enough, he would never have to smell the burnt oil that never really leaves your fingernails. But what I did not realize at the time, and what eats at me today as I watch cars pass down the street, is that I was trading his time for coins that today cannot even pay for my blood pressure medicine. We grew up hearing that a black man had to work twice as hard to get half as much. And that was true, in part. Racism was not something you read about in the newspaper. It was the way the supervisor looked at his watch when I went to the bathroom. It was the fact that I did the work of 3 white men and received the paycheck of 1. So I worked 3 times harder. I wanted to prove I was indestructible. I wanted my family to have a nice house on the west side of the city with a trimmed lawn and a painted fence. I got the house, but I was never there to see the flowers grow. I remember my wife, Esther. What a patient woman. She sewed my torn uniforms every night. The sound of her sewing machine was the soundtrack of my exhaustion. Sometimes I came home so tired I could not even take my boots off by myself. She would kneel on the floor, untie the laces, and wash my feet. I thought that was love, and it was. But today I see that it was also a slow goodbye. I was dying a little with every shift, and she was watching it happen. Marcus grew up seeing me like a ghost. I was the man who left before sunrise and came back after he was already asleep. On Sundays, I sat in the First Baptist Church wearing a suit, but my mind was counting how much I would earn on Monday. I did not hear the choir. I heard the sound of the Ford presses. I believed that being a good father meant being a good provider. What a blatant lie they put in our heads. Being a father means being there. It means talking by the riverbank, playing baseball in the park, knowing the names of your child's friends. I knew none of that. I knew the serial numbers of the parts I assembled. By the time I was 45, I had back pain that made me see stars, but I kept going. At 50, my knees cracked like dry twigs. On Saturday afternoons, I went to Joe's barber shop, the only leisure I allowed myself, and we talked about retirement. We believed we would get there and finally live. Just 5 more years, Joe, I used to say. Just 5 more years, and I'll take Esther fishing in Florida. Joe would agree, razor in hand, and we would laugh about a future that would never come for either of us. Joe died in his barber chair, his heart giving out from exhaustion before he turned 62. The turning point in my life was not a car accident or some great announced tragedy. It was something quiet, like a gas leak you only notice when it is already too late. Marcus was 32 years old. He had followed my advice, studied hard, gotten an office job, wore a tie. He wanted to make me proud. He worked as hard as I did, or maybe harder, only with his mind instead of his hands. He would call me and say, "Dad, I'm almost hitting my target. I'm going to buy that house you always wanted me to have." I told him to keep going. "Work hard, Marcus. It's the only way." I said that to him on a Tuesday night. On Wednesday morning, I got the call. He had a cardiac collapse at his desk, 32 years old. The doctors said stress and lack of sleep made his heart give up. When I walked into that hospital, the smell of disinfectant and the cold light hit me like a punch. He was there, lying down, looking so young, but with an expression of exhaustion I knew all too well. It was my expression. In that moment, I realized I had taught my son how to kill himself for the system. I spent my entire life believing that sweat was sacred, but sweat did not save Marcus. Hard work did not give him a long life. It only gave him a nice funeral, paid for by the life insurance of the company that had already put someone else in his chair before I even buried my son. The funeral was on a gray Saturday. The church was full. The factory workers came in force. They shook my hand with those calloused, scarred hands and offered condolences that meant nothing. I looked at the coffin and could only think of all the times he asked me to play ball, and I said, "Not now, son. Daddy is tired. Daddy needs to work." "Not now" turned into "never again." After Marcus was gone, Esther was never the same. The silence of the house grew heavy. She stopped sewing. The machine stayed there, gathering dust, like a monument to the time we lost. She died 4 years later of sadness, even though the death certificate says something else. And I stayed here, 82 years old, the survivor of a war I did not even know I was fighting. Today I walk through Detroit and see the factories where I left my youth. Many are closed with broken windows and weeds growing through the concrete. The empire we built with our bones is falling apart, and no one cares. The companies I gave 40 years of my life to barely remember my name. My social security number is just a data point in a computer. They do not remember the day I worked with 104-degree fever because I could not lose the production bonus. They do not remember the day I almost lost a finger in the press and came back to work the next day with a makeshift bandage. I sit in this rocking chair, and silence is my only companion. I wash my own dishes now, 1 plate, 1 fork, 1 cup. The routine is slow. I wake up at 6 in the morning out of habit, but I have nowhere to go. Time, which used to be my greatest enemy because I never had enough of it, is now a vast desert I do not know how to cross. Sometimes the new neighbors, young men just starting their lives, see me here and ask what the secret is to reaching my age. They think I will give them some advice for success. They expect me to tell them to push harder, to do what it takes. But I look at them and feel an overwhelming urge to cry. I want to say, go home, stay with your wives, play with your children while they are still small enough to fit in your arms. Work will be there tomorrow, but their childhood will not. Your health will not. But I say nothing. I just give a sad smile and say the secret is to drink plenty of water and have faith. They would not understand. They are still under the spell of the lie. They still think they are machines. I wish I had known that a man's dignity is not in the size of his paycheck. I wish I had understood that the respect I sought from white bosses would never come, no matter how much I produced. The only respect that mattered was the one I should have had for my own time, for my own life. If I could go back to 1955, I would have skipped that extra shift. I would have taken Esther to watch the sunset by the lake. I would have read more stories to Marcus. I thought I had time. Everyone thinks they have time. We make plans for when we retire, for when the bills are paid, for when the house is finally ours. But life happens in the spaces between those things. Life is what we throw away while waiting for the perfect moment to start living. Now my body is a map of pain that I drew myself. Every inflamed joint is a reminder of a wrong choice. My story died with Marcus and Esther. There is no one left to remember how young and strong I was, how I could carry bags of cement as if they were feathers. To the world, I am just an old black man sitting on a porch in a neighborhood that has seen better days. If what I am saying serves anyone who is listening now, let it be this. Look at your hands. What are they holding today? If it is only tools or office papers, loosen your grip a little. Use those hands to hold the people you love. Hard work is a tool for survival, but do not let it become your identity. They lied to us by saying that work dignifies a man. What dignifies a man is love, memory, presence. Work only pays the bills. And at the end of life, the bills that truly matter cannot be paid with money. They are paid with regret or with peace. And I, unfortunately, have very little of the latter. The sun is starting to go down here in Detroit. Soon the Michigan cold will force me inside. I will drink my tea, look at the yellowed photos on the wall, and wait for sleep. Tomorrow is Sunday. I do not go to church anymore. My legs cannot handle the hard pews. I will stay here, listening to the radio, remembering a time when I thought sweat was the answer to everything. I was a good worker, one of the best that factory ever saw. But I was a man poor in life. Do not make the same mistake. Do not let the lie of hard work steal from you what is truly sacred. Time does not come back. Time is the only thing we truly own, and we give it away for free to people who do not even know our last name. If you still have someone waiting for you at home, get there early today. Do not work overtime. Believe an old man who worked every overtime hour possible, and today would give everything he has just to have 5 minutes of a silly conversation with the son he never saw grow up. That is all. Night is coming, and I am tired. Very tired. If this conversation of mine made any sense to you, if it touched something inside you, maybe you can tell me your story too. It is good to know that there are still voices out there in the middle of all this noise of machines and deadlines. Take care, and take care of your time. It is the only thing that truly belongs to you.